Alma, you can unmute yourself. Alma, you are now a panelist. You can unmute yourself to talk.
Thank you. I can hear you.
Thank you. We can hear you too now.
Welcome to the November 18th meeting of the City of Clovis Planning Commission. Members of the public are encouraged to participate in meetings by, 1, accessing the webcast on city website, providing written comments at the same website, participate by phone, or coming to the Planning Commission meeting in person. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And if you'll lead us in the flag salute, please. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Antuna?
Here.
Commissioner Bedstead?
Here.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Here.
Commissioner Hatcher?
Here.
And Chair Hinkle?
Here. If I could have a motion to approve the minutes from the October 28th meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Bedstead, and second by Commissioner Cunningham to approve the October 28th minutes. Commissioner Antuna?
Yes.
Commissioner Bedstead?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatcher?
Yes.
Chair Hinkle?
Yes. Okay, any comments from the Commission Secretary?
Yes, just a reminder for the Commission this evening that the December 13th joint meeting between the Council and the Planning Commission has been postponed. And once a new date has been determined, we will notify the Commission of that new date.
Okay. Planning Commission members, any comments? One, I hope you guys enjoy the lunar eclipse tonight. I'd like to ask, a couple people asked me what to do, but on Sierra, west of DeWitt, there's a house that's had trash, old couch and mattresses and stuff there for almost a month.
Okay.
Who would they, talk to about it? And on Menlo, west of Peach, the first 3 houses on the south side of the road, their trash cans or their totes are constantly left out. But,
Okay, staff will
members-
definitely look at
members
those sites, and it will be a combination of our community service officers and our Department of Public Works.
Okay, great. I'll let the people know that it's going to be looked at.
And just to confirm it, the first location is Sierra and DeWitt, and the other is on Menlo, west of Peach.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, on the south side of the...
Oh, and also, folks can submit these type of requests through our online CRM system as well.
Okay, great. Okay. At this time, if there's anybody in the public that would like to address the Planning Commission on any matter that is not listed on the agenda, this is the time to do so. If there's anybody in the chambers, see none. Is there anybody online?
There are none.
Okay, we'll move on to public hearings. To item 1, consider items associated with plus or minus 2.19 acres of property located south of Shaw Avenue between Sylmar and Helm Avenue for the construction of a coffee kiosk with drive-through window and 1 additional drive-through use. Jason Moyles, J.B. Moyles, Linda A. Moyles, owner, Jeff Jones, IT Architect, Inc., applicant. Item A is to consider CUP 2021-007, a request for a conditional use permit to allow a drive-through use in association with a proposed plus or minus 935 square foot coffee kiosk. Item B is a conditional use permit 2021-010, a request for a conditional use permit to allow a future drive-through use. Staff?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commission. Kelsey George, Planning and Development Services. Tonight for your consideration, as said, is CUP 2021-007 and CUP 2021-010. Both proposed conditional use permits will be on the same subject property, which is on the south side of Shaw, in between Sylmar and Helm Avenues. The subject site is approximately 2.19 acres in size and is on a currently vacant lot. The proposal would be an infill development completely surrounded by similar uses along the Shaw Avenue corridor. The applicant is requesting two separate CUPs. The first is CUP 2021-007, which is identified approximately in green on the screen. It will be approximately 935 square foot coffee kiosk identified as a Dutch Bros with an associated drive-through window. The second CUP, 2021-010, is for an additional and separate drive-through use with a future QSR, although the end user is unknown at this time. The subject property is zoned C2, which does permit drive-through uses subject to an approved conditional use permit. If these entitlements were to be approved tonight, the applicant would move forward with the site plan review process. The project boundaries for the Dutch Bros or CUP 2021-007 is shown as outlined in green. There will be 2 points of ingress and egress to access the site. The drive-through will accommodate up to 22 vehicles in the queuing lane alone. The Clovis Municipal Code requires a 13 queue capacity, so the applicant has exceeded that after being identified as potentially a high-use drive-through. In addition to that, the applicant has provided 17 parking stalls when the code only requires 9 due to it being primarily a drive-through with no indoor seating. It is important to note that this project came through our pre-application process in March, and staff and the applicant have been going back and forth several times to really design a site that minimizes any potential on and off-site traffic impacts. Here's a couple pictures of the conceptual perspectives that were provided. The operations of this kiosk will be very similar to the other Dutch Bros kiosks we've been seeing popping up around town. It is a kiosk with a drive-through. There is no indoor seating. There's a window to order from with a patio area, but there's no dine-in or anything like that. It'll be open 7 days a week from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. with 5 employees at any given time. All deliveries will be via small trucks or vehicles, very typical of any beverage drive-through use. The second CUP, 2021-010, will be for a quick-serve restaurant with associated drive-through. Approving the use of this drive-through does not in any way approve the site layout. When more information is known, this project will be required to come back through the site plan review process, which will be distributed for comment to all of the applicable departments, including planning, engineering, fire, and anybody else whose comments would be applicable for it. And regardless of the end user, it will be required to comply with the municipal code for drive-through uses. That includes any codified hours of operation, queuing capacity, and parking ratio. If a high volume end user is identified, that would be reflected in the site plan and a redesign would be required at the SPR process. Any changes outside of these standards would be required to apply for an amendment to this CUP, which would come before the commission for consideration before approval. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission approve CUP 2021-007 for the conditional use permit with an associated drive-through for the coffee kiosk, and approve CUP 2021-010 for a conditional use permit for a future drive-through with, for a future use with an associated drive-through. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for questions, and the applicant is available for questions as well.
Questions for staff?
Yeah, Kelsey, could we go back to the slide with the elevations showing?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I apologize for the interruption, but can we take a brief recess to allow me a moment to confer with staff about a matter before we proceed to the Commissioner's discussion of this item?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back on record.
Mr. Chair, thank you for giving me that moment to confer with staff. This is concerning a procedural matter that just came to our attention. The city has not adopted procedures for implementing AB 361, which allows remote participation for elected officials and appointed officials in bodies such as this to participate in the meeting without otherwise following the traditional Brown Act rules for notice of the teleconference location. Commissioner Antuna's presence outside of the council chambers today raises an issue that her location was not properly noticed for Brown Act purposes, and therefore our recommendation is that she not vote on this item. Though as any member of the public has a right to come before the commission and make comments, we feel it would still be appropriate for her to participate in the discussion, just not to vote on this application when it comes that time. I'll entertain any questions from the chair and the other commissioners.
If she was to say where she's at now, would that satisfy that?
No, it would not.
Okay.
There are requirements under the Brown Act that if someone is going to attend telephonically, say from your home or place of business, that has to be included in the agenda that is posted 3 days in advance of the meeting, and it also has to identify the location from where the individual is going to be participating and allow the public, basically make that space open to the public in the same manner as the council chambers are. And if that procedure was followed in this instance, then it would address the situation. My understanding is that it was not. Therefore, our recommendation that since Commissioner Atuna is not with us here in the chambers, that she not vote on the matter. But again, as a member of the public, she has the right to address the commission, and so we would be comfortable with allowing discussion from her on this item. And again, I apologize for the untimeliness of bringing this to your attention.
So then the correct way to do this, if any of us are not going to be here, we should notify planning department 3 days prior.
At least, again, that would require then including in the agenda the location from which the non-present commissioner is going to be participating in the meeting, and making that location open to the public in order for the public to participate in the meeting from the same place as the non-present commissioner. Again, recent state law changes, SB 361 allows for a modification of what I just described, which is the traditional requirement. The city has not implemented those procedures.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I do have a question. Would it be more appropriate then that I would recuse myself from this meeting?
Our recommendation is that you abstain from voting on this matter. You, again, as a member of the public, as any other member of the public, can address the Planning Commission. Therefore, we feel comfortable, the City Attorney's Office feels comfortable with you participating in discussion with the rest of the commissioners. However, if you want to take a more cautious approach and just abstain from involvement in this item, you can do that as well. Our recommendation is simply to refrain or to abstain from the vote on this item.
At this time, I would like to abstain from participation. I will simply observe.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if we can go ahead and proceed with questions from the Commission.
Okay. You have the elevations up. My question, Kelsey, is we're going to have 2 lanes waiting. I see that does it narrow down to only one when it gets to the serving window? Or how are the 2 lanes handled then once it gets to the serving window?
So, thank you for your question, Commissioner Cunningham. If you look on the site plan on the north portion there where the lanes kind of blend into one, there still remains the bailout lane. So if they were to receive their drink in line, they can still bail out, but there's only 1 car to the window.
Okay, so it does in fact narrow down to 1. Thank you. Has staff received any feedback about the original Dutch Brothers at Fowler and Herndon as to traffic issues or anything like that?
At this time, we have received no recent correspondence regarding that. It seems as though they've kind of settled into their place and managed their traffic adequately. We haven't received any calls or emails.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to just clarify, so outside of the staging lanes, what is the queuing, I'll call it the informal queuing, similar to Commissioner Cunningham's question? You know, when we approved the Dutch Brothers here on Fowler and Herndon, there was a plan to bring the traffic through kind of the overflow or whatever was going to queue outside of these lanes behind the existing buildings, so that, you know, the entrance there on Sylmar, we wouldn't want it to spill out back onto Shaw. So is there a plan, or maybe the applicant will address how that traffic would flow in?
Yes, so with the SPR, and there is a condition for the CUP as well, the operation will be required to submit what we're calling a queuing plan. So the idea is that when the traffic counts warrant for the drive-through, that they have a plan on what they're going to do to manage that, so there will be no spillage onto Shaw Avenue. They'll also be required, similar to the Herndon and Fowler location, to have a traffic coordinator, somebody who will stand out there and guide the traffic in conformance with that queuing plan. Our idea would be to have the queuing go this way along this access road to the south, but they haven't submitted the queuing plan yet, but we would tweak it to our satisfaction.
So, thank you. That's my inclination, is to have it queue away from Shaw.
Mm-hmm.
I can see very quickly how trying to make that kind of turn off of Silmar, that could, just looking at the traffic that's at these other Dutch Brothers, it's going to fill that road quickly. So that would be a recommendation. Sounds like that gets addressed in site plan review, but.
Right, and this area right here is going to be a no-stop area. So cars coming through to travel through the site or to travel to the future QSR, there would be no blockage here. And the design is as such, it's basically making a U-turn if they come this way. So the preliminary idea would be to have the traffic coordinator coordinate them to go through this way to fill the queue from the south still. Did that make sense?
It does make sense, and I think probably myself and the rest of us here, the traffic concern and not impeding that flow is one of the more significant things for me. So yeah, I'd like to see something take shape as you described versus pushing out towards Shaw.
Yeah.
Just a note as well, Commissioner Bedstead, that you referenced the Dutch Bro at Fowler and Herndon, and although it's our observation that site operates adequately, we certainly did hear some feedback initially that it was crowded and that the access to and around that site is at peak periods difficult to navigate. Our experience with that site has certainly informed, our review of this application, and the queuing capacity within the site is substantially greater than the Fowler and Herndon site. So I think we have, Kelsey, correct me if I'm wrong, but we have in excess of 20 cars queuing capacity here, and we have looked at some Dutch Bros outside of the city of Clovis. And we think that should cover most operations, even peak operations. But our goal has been to provide really enough queuing capacity within the site, within every site, to accommodate most operations, and then have a plan to accommodate excess queues without backing onto local streets, not local streets, but city public streets. So that's really kind of our two-tiered goal here, is kind of a belt and suspenders approach. One is make sure there's sufficient queuing within the site, and then a backup plan for if queuing exceeds that defined area.
One question, on one of your pictures, there's a lot of cars that are currently parked in that vacant lot. Are you expecting that to be a problem if people are currently parking there to take over the parking stalls that are going to be for that business?
No, we don't anticipate that. That's likely from the hotel across the access road. There's no way of really telling where those cars are, making that kind of a makeshift parking lot. But once it becomes developed, that won't be an issue because it'll be private. People just tend to park on vacant land.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions from the commission? Okay, I'd like to, applicant, if you'd like to say something.
Hi, my name is Todd Clark with IT Architecture, and I'm here for any questions you guys may have of any concerns or anything I can help answer.
Just question per the prior discussion,
Okay.
I realize you may have to submit your site plan review, but can you speak to
Yeah.
any of the intent around
Yeah,
your
we worked
queuing?
on the Herndon and Fowler also, and I think there's 16 cars queued out at that one. So this is 22, so we were substantially more. Plus, we have the bailout lane here, the other one does not. So cars in the queue up to 5 or 6 cars back, if they have a small order, they can get their drink and get out of the queue and push that queue forward and keep those cars moving through. So Dutch Brothers has done this, and this is their latest standard now, and they've done this throughout their newer ones, and they've had really, really good success with the bailout to get people, because they have runners just running drinks back and forth. So it keeps that queue moving. So we feel that this, along with their traffic management plan and queuing people out there to manage how that traffic flows, it should be a lot better without a learning curve like Fowler and Herndon.
Can you be more specific about the, I'll call it the overflow queuing outside of the 22? In your intent or the intent?
It was like Kelsey said, that we'd bring them around and have them queue back in and off of Sillmore, so it doesn't back up to Shaw.
Thank you.
And your facilitators will ensure that that occurs.
Yes.
Your Dutch Brothers has been a victim of its own success out here in Clovis.
That they have, yeah.
I know, diplomatically speaking, that there were some rough edges when Fowler and Herndon opened up. This commission was told at the time, not from the applicant, but from the shopping center owner, that all businesses had been consulted prior and had no objections to the queuing. That wasn't the case.
Oh.
It was just the opposite was the case.
I can see that.
So I was sharpening my fangs for the for the shopping center owner, but if I need to be assured that you're going to check with the other area tenants and make sure that you're not in conflict with them.
We will do our best. We will meet with the owner of the property and make sure that they communicate with the neighbors to let them know what is going on and assure that happens.
Okay.
So note, on a conditional use permit, are not the neighbors
Notified?
Notified?
Yes, notices were sent out to the surrounding property owners of 300 feet.
Responses?
There
Shopping center?
was no correspondence.
Excuse me, could you give us
Sorry,
your...
my name is Jan Robertson. I'm architect with IT Architecture. Apologize. So,
Well, our
I just-
sensitivity obviously is approving a site and then getting blowback from
Right.
the area.
Oh,
And we
absolutely.
want to avoid that.
Absolutely.
We're all geared towards success for the applicants that come before us, but it's not unconditional access, or
Sure.
success. We need to make sure that the community is safe
Right.
and happy too.
Yeah, and that's why I asked if the tenants of the shopping center were noticed, then they had an opportunity to respond. Certainly, can go door to door, and we can recommend to our owner that they do that.
Yeah.
A lot of people get a notice in the mail and they
Rip it up.
circular file it.
Correct. But
I
in the
get that.
previous one, we had this, the shopping center owner presented themselves here and assured this commission that they had spoken with each other tenant and that the other tenants had no objections, which wasn't the
Yeah.
case. That's why I'm
not right.
speaking to it.
Well, I don't know if this particular, owner has talked to any of the neighbors. We don't know that.
No, I can't say that he has, but we will send out an email and ask him to, the recommendation is that he communicates with his neighbors and lets them know what's going on there.
And we can CC Kelsey
Yeah.
on that, so you guys have a record that
Yeah.
we've, made good on our,
Yeah,
Promise here.
work with their staff and
Absolutely.
that'll be fine.
you have great staff.
Yeah,
so
we love
have
working
no
with your
problem.
staff, so no questions there.
Any other questions? Actually, I'd just like to seek clarification on a question that Commissioner Cunningham asked. So when I don't know if we're generalizing here, but who gets noticed specifically? Is it the property owner, or is it those who lease or have agreements to rent the space? Because that could be significantly different, right? If I'm a property owner, I say, well, I'm good, and I deal with the fallout of the tenants not being happy, which could be reasonable. Or if the tenants of the properties are noticed, that may have a different outcome. Do we know which it is?
Yes, so city policy is to notice the property owner, and we put the responsibility on the owner to notify their tenants.
Got it. So in this case, if the property owner, well, it may not make sense, but
They could be in New York, for all I know.
they could be in New York.
We can ask the owner to be personable, or the owner of the property to be personal with his neighbors, not just, owners of the property.
It would make sense to notice everybody with an address.
Out of curiosity, is the owner, or is your franchise owner at this location the same as the one in?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay.
Yes, as far as I know. He hasn't been involved too much yet because we're still in the planning phase,
Right.
but we've had communication about his layout once or twice, so I'm assuming it is.
And I'm sure you'll convey to him the interchange tonight.
Oh, I've
as
already
well.
told him many of times. So, yes.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Open up questions from anybody in the chambers. See none, anybody online?
There are none.
Okay, bring it back to the commission for more discussion.
Yeah, I think maybe I tried to get the question off earlier to city staff, but, so we spent a lot of time obviously talking about the first CUP here, the Dutch Brothers, but there is a second ask for another CUP. That second site, if we were to vote to approve that tonight, and maybe the applicant could have answered this for me as well, but are they intending to build out a shelled space that will eventually get an occupant? Or I guess I'm trying to understand, why is there an ask for a second CUP before we really know what's there, unless there's some economies of scale or something when they're building both sites out at the same time, the latter being kind of this shelled space, as I would put it, that's seeking a occupant and then refining whatever their, circulations are and the volume, as you've all said, we wouldn't necessarily accommodate two high volume locations here, but I'm kind of wrestling with that a little bit in terms of why normally we get a CUP and something's tied to it, and this is rather open. So like I said, I appreciate any clarification there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the applicant would be better suited to answer that. We don't have an SPR for that portion of the property yet, so there's no intention of a shell building at this time. It's just entitling the use at the same time as the first one, the Dutch Bros.
If I can jump on that. The owner of the property, with everything changing with COVID, knows that drive-throughs now are kind of the key to make money in food. He was approached by a smaller drive-through, and he doesn't know if the deal's gonna happen. So at our point, he's like, I can't tell you, I don't wanna, assume anything of who can come in, but I'd like to get a drive-through so that way I can go out and fish for someone that, hey, I got a drive-through location, we can build you a 1,200 square foot building, and you're good to go. It wouldn't be a Chick-fil-A or an In-N-Out, it would be a smaller one. The original talks one was like a Del Taco. Not high impact, not real busy, just another food source. So, and we would leave the pad until we get a tenant, and then we can come back through SPR and go through that process with you guys.
And just to emphasize, the site layout is fairly limited to what kind of user can go there, just based on queuing and parking anyway.
Okay, so basically this opens the door for them to go out and research possible tenant for this type of business.
Yeah, it entitles the land for them and just makes it kind of an easier sell. The land's already entitled. They still have to come back for the site plan review to memorialize the layout, at which time staff will distribute to all of the relevant agencies and get comments and conditions and make sure that it meets all of the standards.
Thank you.
Will the site plan review come before us again?
No.
Or is it strictly at the staff level or?
Correct, yeah. The SPRs are approved at the director level.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so, well, thank you both, that you answered my question. I guess I'm still, again, wrestling with this idea of approving something. I mean, if the owner does find someone, I realize maybe there's an opportunity to sell it by saying it's already, conditioned for that, but, I mean, if they were to have to bring it back through, that's relatively simple to get on the agenda, is it not? Just in terms of timing. So if they were 3 months, 6 months down the road, said, I've got a deal, I need a CUP now, it seems like those can be slotted into our agenda with relative ease, but maybe that's misunderstanding on my part.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking, like, to start from the beginning with the CUP and get it on the agenda for scheduled once he has a tenant. Is that what you're asking?
That's right.
Yeah, it's roughly 3 to 5 months timeline.
Okay. Thank you.
And if I may add, Commissioner Bestfed, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your part of your question too is, you may feel that, maybe if we can, continue this item to a later date, maybe to a date uncertain, to allow, the applicant to bring it back to the commission when a user is known. And that's definitely a possibility that the commission can explore as well.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess just for discussion amongst the other commissioners there, probably not the hill to die on necessarily, but I would feel better having more specificity about what we're saying yes to. And that's why I was asking about, if we're building out a space right away and we have kind of more of an idea, something more concrete, but this is all kind of hypothetical about what we may do down the line, and we're kind of asking for, maybe not the right words, but kind of a blanket approval to go and do that right now.
May I speak?
Yes, go ahead.
It's not really a blanket. We have certain criteria. The building can be so big, and it has the minimum requirements for queuing right now for normal drive-through. I can understand if there was, a Chick-fil-A or someone that's high traffic, but this layout that we're proposing meets all the criteria for a drive-through at a standard drive-through for the city of Clovis. So it's not like we're saying, hey, give us, a freebie to do whatever we want. We're putting speculation, or we're stipulating that it's a so many square foot building. We're providing so many parking. We're providing 14 on this one. Excuse me, I think the requirement's 13. So we are, meeting the requirements for a drive-through, and we're just saying we don't know who it is right now. We know for a fact it's not going to be a high traffic. We told our client, you're not going to get a Chick-fil-A. You're not going to get an In-N-Out, so don't even try it. It's going to be a smaller, normal type drive-through situation. So that's what we're doing. We're not trying to, I don't want you guys to think we're trying to pull a fast one. We designed this to the city's requirements. So that's where we stand on that. And if we have to go through, we do. But it just seems like if this was a Taco Bell, would it work? There's enough queuing, the size is right, the parking ratios work, everything works. So there's no reason to say, that we're trying to pull a fast one. If we come in and say Chick-fil-A, you guys are going to say no way, and we're just going to, we won't even entertain a Chick-fil-A or an In-N-Out because we know their queuing capacity and what they do. We wouldn't do that. So we're just trying to say, hey, if we meet a normal criteria for drive-through, can we figure out who that tenant is in the future? And we'd come through the site plan review, so elevations and everything else would be approved at staff level. So.
Thank you for your explanation there. Just to be clear, I don't believe anyone's trying to pull a fast one. That's not the line of questioning that I'm after. Just kind of different coming through in this fashion. If you said, hey, I do have a Taco Bell, I don't think I'd be questioning it. That being said, I'm comfortable with the explanations, so I don't have anything else.
I think it's more an issue for us in putting the cart before the horse, in terms of approving something that we don't know what's gonna be there. That isn't normally how things are done, so I think that was kind of more Commissioner's Bedstead.
Understood, I agree.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think we try to design something that meets all the criteria. We just don't know who's in the box yet.
Yeah.
So,
Understood. And, sorry if I may pile on here. So if we say yes to B, the site plan review is still I'll say the check on the city saying, does this adhere? So, like he's saying, I'm not gonna do a Chick-fil-A, but if for some reason the Chick-fil-A did come through, SPR is where you're gonna scrutinize that of sort and evaluate it and say, no, this is non-conforming, it doesn't fit to what the intent is. I guess at some point, like Commissioner Cunningham asked, it's gonna move past the commission if we vote yes, and we won't ever see it again. So the city's gonna be the ones that have to govern and decide the appropriateness of what goes there, correct?
Correct. It will be through the SPR process that we'll review that at the staff level. And if it does happen to be a high user, one of the things that staff will look at as well is to, perhaps, since this area here, per the conditions of the first CUP, it needs to be maintained clear. Then we can look at, the queuing, overflow to come this direction. So vehicles will come here, come around into the drive-through and keep this area clear so they can exit the site. So we'll look at all that as well at the staff level.
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Is there any more discussions at all? Okay, well then we're open for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve CUP 2021-007.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Hatcher and second by Commissioner Bedstead to approve CUP 21-007. Commissioner Bedstead?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatcher?
Yes.
Chair Hinkle?
Yes. Okay, open for a motion on item B.
I just want to make a comment before maybe someone else makes a motion. As City Planner, Mr. Merchant said, I think the City of Clovis does do a good job. I think we get smarter as we go. So the things that we've done, I don't want to say see the errors of our ways, but, we're informed. We now know. So my confidence is in the city, being able to make sure that this outcome is conforming and doesn't create problems. So while this is a little atypical, I will support it. So with that, I'll make a motion to approve CUP 2021-010.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Bedstead and a second by Commissioner Hatcher to approve CUP 2021-010. Commissioner Bedstead?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Yes.
Commissioner Hatcher?
Yes.
Chair Hinkle?
Yes. Okay, is there any other questions for staff or whatever? I see none. I'll adjourn the meeting at looks like 6:43.
So with the, 83